Thank you so much for hopping on and giving up a half hour of your time to find out a little bit more about our new Friend2Friend student modules through Kognito. My name is Kayla Stasny. I'm the program administrator for our behavioral health and education initiatives. And so throughout this process, as we've added these modules, I have been working with several from Kognito, Nyla and Marquez, who are both on this call and are going to take us through just some information about the student modules, how to access throughout. If you would like to throw a question in the chat, I'll be monitoring that so that they can answer them. And then after, we can also go through some questions, however it works for you. But we are really excited to expand this. And just to give a little bit of background, we've had the teacher component or staff component modules with the at-risk available for about a year and a half now. And this whole student project came about because some of the students were asking, what about us? Is there something for us? I feel like sometimes I need a little bit of help with how to say it and what to say to my friends when they maybe have something going on. And so this is one of those ask and you shall receive type of times, which are great. And so with that, I will turn it over to Nyla and Marquez. Oh, I forget about this one all the time. I mean, this is the second time, but basically Cognito came about from a bill in 2021 with our legislator that just brought this evidence-based virtual mental health and suicide prevention simulation-based training program to any staff member working in North Dakota. And we are currently working with this current session to try to expand that from our 2024 to our 2027 timeline to give more opportunity for people to engage. Now I think I can turn it over.
Yep, now I'll take it. Thanks, Kayla. As Kayla said, I'm Nyla. I am the account rep for Kognito here in the Midwest. Just a little background, just why I wanted to work with, obviously, North Dakota, but also with Marquez doing these webinars. I am an educator. I just recently left the field and felt that mental health is very important right now in our public schools. And I love Kognito. I love that we are creating a safe spot for both educators and staff, and of course, students to practice these skills. Working virtually, one thing that was definitely seen is needing that safe environment for students to practice skills, empathy, relationship building, interpersonal and intrapersonal skills, which Cognito does a really great job of. So what they're doing is creating the science of learning and conversations with these virtual humans. So I know it can be kind of awkward when you're looking at these virtual humans because they're lifelike, but the great part is they are not completely human looking. So there isn't that transference, which is really important, especially when we're experiencing both adults and students alike trauma outside of the school building or even in the school building to practice those skills instead of having that trauma related experience occur while you're completing the training. So once again, the great thing that we have is the ecosystem of support. We're looking at the entire school community, making sure that we're all using the same language, all the same skills are being taught within that community. So then they can practice those skills in the safe environment first, and then apply those to the real world. So within Cognito's training, we do have that holistic approach where we have the educator and staff training, we have the friend-to-friend curriculum, and then we do have programs for parents and caregivers. So the best part is the friend-to-friend curriculum. What I really like about Cognito and the way that they do this is there is a lesson plan and all the resources are on the website that you guys will have access to. There's the lesson plan, so the prep work before, which we all like to have those resources available so we're not having to do that extra work because teachers are always doing additional work to prep for these things. So with the lesson plan, it tells you a little bit of a guide what to do prior to the lesson when students are actually involved in the simulations. And we always want to follow up. We don't want them just to have that simulation and then be done. And then the other part is the lesson companion, which are the resources that the students get to use, whether it's note taking while they're going through the simulation or the follow-up questions. I always think about the rule of three. They have to see it, they have to hear it, and then they have to do it. And you want to make sure that those skills are going to long-term memory. And the students don't just get to access these programs once, they can go in and practice these skills as many times as they need. So when we're looking at the Friend2Friend curriculum, there are 5 different simulations that they can go into. There's the emotional mental wellness, which we will show a quick clip today, just so you get to see how the students experience the simulation. We've got safe and caring schools, which is across all 3 platforms. You have substance use, you have bullying prevention, and then resiliency and growth. One thing to keep in mind with the bullying prevention and resiliency and growth, it's set up like a graphic novel. So when the students are starting the simulation, they'll have the first tab, and then they'll have to go in 2 other tabs to walk through the storyline to make progress on those simulations. So what I always think about, I know Kayla and I both coming from education, kids like to have a tab open and then close out all the rest of them. If they do that, they won't get to walk all the way through the simulation. So that is important to make sure that they're keeping those tabs open while they're completing those simulations. And just so then you know what they're doing within the simulations, you do have the review mode so you can see the Friend2Friend curriculum. You're not going to get the actual completion with it, but you're going to get to see what the students are doing as they're going through the curriculum. So this is very similar. Obviously, this is one from the educator and staff, but it's the same type of the parts that they'll see when they're in the simulation. So they have the dialogue options, the undo, which is one of my favorite things because in real life, we don't get to undo anything. We have those experiences, and then we're like, oh, maybe that wasn't the best route to take in that conversation. So you get to I would suggest, and just when you're having those conversations, let them make mistakes. That's the way that they're going to grow. And then you can build off that resiliency and growth one as well. Um, there's the coaching feedback and in the engagement meter. I would really make sure that students are really paying close attention to that engagement meter because they're going to see how comfortable that other student is and having a conversation with them. And they'll know that too because the coach will be giving feedback throughout the entire simulation to let them know how they're doing. So that it's just that reinforcement to make sure that they understand like, hey, we make mistakes, you can go ahead and undo and then go through another part through the talks selections to see if maybe there was another route to have in that conversation. With each of the simulations with the products within Friend2Friend, there will be learning objectives because we all know middle school through high school students want to know, why am I doing this? They have to have the outcome, and that's a question that will come up all the time. The duration of time, that's the average time that students will take to complete the simulation, and the skills. What are they going to learn in completing this? And once again, you can use these as your SMART goals while you're working through this with students. So they know exactly what they're going to do, how they're going to reach that goal, and then it gives them time for some self-reflection. So I'm going to mute myself real quick and then show you a small clip from the emotional and mental wellness.
I only have one little brother, and I don't think I'd be able to spend that much time with him. How are you doing it?
I'm just trying to stay out of it, like locking myself in my room when I don't have to deal with my sisters because it's the only place I can be alone and have some quiet.
Oh man, that sucks.
It's just the way it is, and it's not going to change. Sometimes I wish I could just disappear, just not be here anymore, not have to deal with my messed up life.
When you said you wanted to disappear, you didn't mean that, right? Like, you're not talking about suicide, are you?
What? No. Jeez, Michael, you've been watching too many Lifetime movies or something.
So you could see as they're going through, the coach is giving feedback, the engagement meter is changing. She does make kind of a little bit of a joke about Lifetime movies, which Kayla has heard me say several times. Maybe our kids can't necessarily relate to Lifetime movies all the time, but I definitely can. So it was good though that Michael's practicing those skills to feel comfortable to even ask her those types of questions. And I think so often students don't necessarily feel comfortable with suggesting to go maybe talk to someone like a counselor, and this gives them the safe spot to practice those skills before they're actually engaging with their peers.
Hey, Nyla,
Yeah.
I wanted to add, when Michael was speaking, you saw a box come up where he chose what he wanted to say to his peer. There's usually about 3 to 5 options, and the students can basically go any route they want to go. They control the conversation. Some students can go down wormholes and make the conversation a lot longer than expected, and some students can get to the end game a lot faster. Um, and they can get negative feedback, positive feedback. So there's a lot of different routes that students can take. So it's really cool because they can control how the conversation goes in their little safe space with their headphones on and just going through the simulation. So it's a really, really cool simulation for your students.
That was perfect, Marquez, because now you get to walk them through how
Oh,
students
yeah,
get to the
I'm up.
simulation. That's perfect. All right, I'll stop sharing so then you can actually walk them through real one.
So I am going to walk you all through how to access the friend-to-friend simulations. So it's the exact same as staff going to the website. So your website is northdakota.cognito.com. And this is what your landing page will look like. So depending on the type of school you're from, private, public, you would select your option. So I'll just select public school. And then you can see all of the districts in North Dakota come up. So I will select Bismarck. And then you'll see the different schools within Bismarck. So I'll select the high school. And it'll prompt you to create a password. One recommendation when it comes to students, for their username, please have them use their school email if possible, because you'll see some students have some great usernames that they come up with that they usually forget right away after they log in and try to log in again. So I would always suggest using an email if possible. And we have the option to roster your students, and you would work with Kayla and myself to get your students rostered. And that's another option to get their account set up without them having to go through this process. But I'm going to walk through setting up an account for you. So username, password. And then you would accept the terms and conditions. And then they would hit register. And they would get a confirmation. So they don't get an email confirmation. This is just a confirmation that their account is created. And they would click here. And then they would be prompted to log in with the same username and password they just created. And hit sign in. And then here, you would select user type. So for all your staff, you would select educator, but for your students, they would select student and then the class grade. So they do not need to input a student ID. They just would need to pick the grade they're part of. So I'll pick 10th grade and then hit submit. And all of the friend-to-friend options will pop up for them. And you can see it shows the title, a quick blurb of what the simulation is about, and also the estimated time of completion. The not started button here is just they haven't hit the launch button to start the simulation. So when you're ready for them to start, all they have to do is hit launch and another window will open for them. And all the students, they'll be prompted to start with a pre-survey that they go through, only a few questions. And you can see now you can start the course. And then they'll be able to start the course. So it's very quick to get them to set up their accounts, to get to the course, to launch the course. And like I said, the courses usually last anywhere from 30 to 45 minutes. So within one class, a student should ideally be able to complete the simulation within the class time frame that's allotted. So I wanted to stop there to see if anyone had any questions.
Can I share something?
Professors?
I was gonna say one more thing just to note, like the reason why it is moving so slowly to upload is this is like a video game. This isn't a typical video like that you would potentially watch when we have trainings at the beginning of the school year. It has that technology in it, so it does take a moment to upload. So if they're saying it's not uploading, it does take a moment to do so. That was all.
Thank you.
And there is a
And-
question in the chat as to whether educators can see their progress as they're going through.
So educators would not be able to see their progress. As like if you're an admin over the school or anything like that, you would just be able to see that they started the simulation, but not exactly where they're at within the simulation. And one thing to note, if a student does not finish, the simulation will stop exactly where it is. And if they log in like a week later, it'll pick up right where they left off at. And they'll receive a certificate of completion if that's needed for anything within the class. And they'll receive coaching feedback after they complete as well.
And one of the questions that came up yesterday that Kayla and I were talking about is we were talking about students who might be 2 or 3 grade levels below their reading level, to make sure that there is the choice where they can have it read to them while they're going through it, just to make sure that the audio's on it, not during the simulation part, but the part before, like if they're going through the questions and such.
I know one question that came up yesterday that was a really good question was, you know, who is this targeting? Is this a whole class? Is this a small, you know, special ed group? So maybe could you just talk a little bit about, you know, who are we targeting and who do we want using this and
Well,
how?
Marcus,
Yeah, so this targets all students within your institution, 6th through 12th graders, because mental health is valuable to everyone. So we have some examples where schools will identify maybe student leaders within a school to go through a training first to help with rolling this out to some of their maybe 9th graders or younger students to be a resource for them, a sounding board to help. You have some schools that will continuously roll it out to 9th graders every single year, like maybe emotional mental wellness, and then maybe 10th graders will do bullying, or 11th graders would do substance use. So there's a lot of different ways you can use them, but it's suggested that all students go through it, go through the simulations, because everyone can benefit from having these hard conversations. And one thing to note is it's recommended when you go through these simulations, when your students go through it or staff, to have, if you have anyone available that can be a resource for them that day, if it's a teacher, mental health support, to be there if anything they want to have a conversation after they go through the training, because all staff also have access to these friend-to-friend simulations within the staff accounts. It's just the review versions. The only thing that's different is you don't have surveys on the staff side. You would still be able to see everything the students see. So you can review it before you roll it out to your students to be a resource for them as well.
Can I piggyback on you again, Marquis? One thing that I would note is the fact, like I do agree with what Marquez said, based on the content, it is applicable for students in grades 6 through 12. But if you're looking at rolling it out too, I mean, having it as a universal, as a tier 1 support, but there are students who could benefit from going into these multiple times, whether it's within a small group with a social worker, maybe their IEP case manager, that they could continue to practice those skills. And there are those lesson companions where then you would have feedback too, how they are doing with these skill sets. And that could be something too that could help you guide their IEP goals, having conversations, like I said, within small group and having that reflection as well.
And I know one thing that we are fortunate enough working with Cognito is they are willing to kind of meet with schools or units or districts about how would it work to roll this out within your community. And so if that is something that you think that you're interested in, please reach out to me and I can get something set up. Each school has kind of done it a little bit different, and Cognito has seen some of the different ways that it's done, and they kind of have seen what works and maybe what doesn't. And so feel free to let me know if you'd like to use them as a resource, and we can get something set up.
Yes, definitely. Thanks, Kayla.
And I have a question. Would it be possible for parents to come in and preview these modules as well? I noticed in the login screen, there's an option for students, for educators, and for parents. And I'm just thinking, some parents who might want to be a little bit more involved in what their students are engaging in, is that a possibility for them to go in and see those modules as well?
That is a possibility. So the parents, just like staff, have review versions. So they would see everything the students see. So yes, that is 100% a possibility for the parents to review it before the students see it.
And that could be, Natalie, that'd be a great idea for like the rollout as well. Like if you're working with them, this is what we're thinking about, just so they can, parents want input as well. And it is their children. So having those conversations before might just help to make sure that all the audiences, the educators and staff, the students and parents are all speaking the same language as well.
And as part of the resources, there is a sample parent letter. And so if there is a district or a school that's interested in using this with students, they can download that letter and kind of tweak it to what works for them, just to make parents aware of what is happening within the school in some of these conversations. Are there any other questions?
Well, we are excited for you all to get
Sure.
started with the Friend2Friend. Your students will love it, 100%.
So again, if you guys want any support with rolling this out, please outreach me. We have all of the PDFs and everything are on our website, so that you can review and look through before you ever think about rolling it out with your students. There is a question, could we find out what schools have used this in our REAs so that we know who to promote this to? Absolutely, Janet. If you want to outreach me and just kind of ask here's my schools that are within my REA, who has used it, who hasn't, and I can get that data for you. Right now, this is brand new, and so really nobody has used this other than a few teachers have gone in and just kind of reviewed it on their own at-risk module login. But so right now, everything is brand new to everyone. So we're all learning it together.
Yeah, and one thing I wanted to bring up, you said data. So I mentioned the surveys. The survey data is accessible for you all. I can pull that for you by school. And it goes through pre, and then there's a post survey after the simulation. And in the post survey, there's open-ended questions. So a lot of students will provide some pretty candid feedback that could be beneficial for the school. It's all anonymous though, but some of the feedback can give you all some ideas of some tweaks or things to work on or learn from to help your students.
And I guess I did. Oh, go ahead, Natalie.
Oh, I was just gonna say, Janet, I really appreciated that question in terms of like who we can best market this to. And I think starting with those schools that have engaged or their educators have engaged in the at-risk simulations is a really, really natural place to start. As most of the feedback that I've heard from educators who have gone through Kognito themselves is that, wow, this was really helpful and helped me really think about approaching conversations in ways that maybe I thought that I had a really good handle on, but maybe now I've realized that, I need to listen better, or maybe I should just work on those I statements instead of the, you make me feel this way, that sort of thing. So I think it's a really natural place to start. And if you have any schools that you want to reach out to who would like to get their educators started in the first place, Kayla's a great starting point for that as well, but so is the Be Hero Technical Assistance Center. So
Natalie is one of our Be Hero partners, so
sorry, I
she's
could
seen
have
it
said
all.
that up front.
Yeah, I was like, you're promoting. I like it.
Well, and I know we have just a few minutes left, and if there aren't any other questions, just to kind of bring up a few questions that have come up from other educators, just because if one person asks it, it probably is a question for others. Could you guys just talk a little bit about that privacy piece? You know, if students are putting in their email address, I know that's kind of always a concern these days. So if you could just maybe speak to that. And then maybe just kind of what would be involved or what would the steps be with rostering? You know, what do you need for that kind of login?
I'll let you take the first part, Nyla.
I think that those are both your questions. Those are CS questions.
No, so I'll start with the privacy. So Cognito doesn't save any information or sell any information um, to any outside vendors or anyone. Just like the survey data, all the information that comes from staff or students is scrambled. So there's no way to know who it comes from or what it comes from. So all of the student information would be confidential. Only thing we use is some of the survey data for our projects and our white papers, things like that. But none of the information from the actual students is saved within our platform.
And what I was going to say when you said product, which was a good part, Mark, is when they're utilizing that information that's gathered from the surveys, it's just to better our products. Honestly, we're constantly tweaking. This year, we are not getting any new products. These are the ones that we're working on, and we want to make sure that we are listening to customer feedback so we can continue to have the best product that is supporting the school districts.
Yes, perfect. And for rostering, it's a very simple process. For students, it would basically be an Excel spreadsheet, first name, last name, the school they're associated with, and their email. And all I would do is I would upload their information into our system, and I would be able to create accounts for them. But one thing we have done with a lot of other schools across the country is create generic passwords for students, and that eases the login process. So what would happen is you would just give me all the information and say you're from Fargo. Say I would say Fargo 23 exclamation point would be your student's password. So all your students would log in with their email and the given password, and it would take off 5-10 minutes from the login process or them having any troubles creating a username or creating their own personal password. But it's very simple. It's just an Excel spreadsheet and takes like 5 minutes for me to upload for you. So you would be able to get the students active right away for your school.
Thank you for that. I see we're just about at 12:30, and so if there are no more questions that anybody wants to put out there today, we will let you go and I'll stop recording. But if you do have any questions, feel free to reach out. I'm going to continue to update our frequently asked questions section of the website just based on what questions we are getting so that everyone is getting the same information. And if you are interested in kind of working with myself, Cognito, to get this rolled out throughout your school, feel free to email. And otherwise, we greatly thank you for giving up part of your day to kind of see what this is about. And we really hope that we can help support you as you support the students. Crystal, my email address should be on the website, but I will post it in the chat as well, just in case it's not readily available there. And please reach out. Otherwise, I'll stop recording and we will go from there. We have one more next week, Tuesday, to share about this. And after that, we hope to hit the ground running.